Welcome to the Daily. It's April 15th. I'm Jason Saghini with Nick Firchau. And April 15th in MLS is the closing of the first transfer window, Nick.
Yeah, and one of the stories we're watching today is whether Robert Pires, the Frenchman who plays for Villarreal, is going to sign a deal. He was rumored for Philadelphia Union. We'll have to see. Check back with MLSsoccer.com. You might find a story.
Yeah, and speaking of Philadelphia and MLS Soccer, they travel to Toronto tonight. ESPN2 at 7 o'clock. Big home opener for Toronto and a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, this is a big game. You look at the slate of games this week, and this might not rank at the top in terms of the quality of teams, but this is a big one for Toronto. They played on the road the first two games. Their home opener against an expansion team. They're a pretty frustrated bunch. We talked to a bunch of their fans this week for one of the features on the site, the Soapbox, and they're pretty frustrated in the fourth year here of Mo Johnston's rebuilding program. And they lost to the Sounders last year. They don't want to lose to another expansion team.
You just can't rebuild every year for Toronto.
Right.
So Philadelphia actually coming off a big win in their home opener against DC United, riding high. Sebastian Letou with 3 goals. How do you see it coming out, shaking out tonight on the field?
I think Toronto will probably get a result. Whether or not they get a win, they might just get a tie. It's tough to say. Toronto hasn't played really well.
Is a tie good enough, though? If you ask me, I don't think the fans will be happy if they get out of there with a tie.
I think it's better than going up 1-0 and then giving up 3 goals to a rookie in the second half, and I think that's what has a lot of Toronto people concerned.
Okay.
So if they can get something out of this instead of a loss to an expansion team, I think Toronto's got something to hope for another week.
Yeah, that's a good place to set the bar.
Right.
Don't give up 3 goals in the second half to a rookie.
Right.
Okay, so we're looking now at the U.S. Open Cup from last night. Big game for Real Salt Lake. They actually dropped the 2-0 lead, went down 3-2 in overtime, tied it up, and won on PKs. So a big win for for Real Salt Lake to move forward in Open Cup.
Yeah, and it's sort of unfortunate these games sort of get lost out there in the middle of the week. There's no television coverage. They sort of you can follow them on a chat online or something because these are great games. And one of the big things for Real Salt Lake is they have 3 or 4 guys, Finley and Borchers and a couple other guys, that go 120 minutes in this game. So you could tell Real Salt Lake really put a lot into this game, and they didn't just sort of toss it aside and only start their subs.
Right. Will Johnson, another one of those guys that went 120 minutes. So while it's good to get your younger players some playing time in meaningful games, it's also good that Real Salt Lake showed they want to win this. They're putting players out there who can help them win.
Right.
But a tough turnaround now going to LA this weekend, and those guys, is Finley going to start after going 120 minutes? Is Will Johnson going to start after going 120 minutes? So they're going to have some lineup reshuffling, you'd think.
Yeah, absolutely. The other side of the coin is that they have to turn around Saturday night and play the Galaxy, which is probably the last team anybody wants to play in the league right now.
Right.
And that's a big game, 3-4 games into the season, that's a big game for Western Conference sort of positioning right now. So,
especially with Salt Lake, who didn't get off to the start that they hoped in the regular season.
Right.
Speaking of Salt Lake and Salt Lake forwards, Yuri Movsisyan with a brace yesterday. So scoring in Europe, that's good. And Chris Rolfe as well, another American scoring in Europe.
Yeah, it's a big deal for both players, but it's a nice start for Rolfe. He's been working himself into the lineup. And to get a goal for Aalborg is a big deal. He left Chicago with sort of a bad taste in his mouth, didn't like the offer they gave him last year, and took his chance in Denmark, and this seems to be a stride in the right direction.
And speaking of American forwards abroad and scoring in the World Cup, Landon Donovan, a big part of that World Cup team and a big forward in MLS. You spoke with him yesterday about which forward should be brought in and get a look.
Yeah, Donovan was here for a promotional event yesterday, and there's a video on the site for the sit-down, and we asked him about Edson Buttle and just said, what's been your impression so far? He said that he's the best forward in MLS right now and that he should get a look for the U.S. national team. So, confirming what a lot of people thought.
And he's his teammate, so of course
I think he's obligated to say it.
But yeah, we'll see if Bob Bradley, obviously we've been talking about it a lot here. A lot of people have been talking about Edson Buttle getting back, getting another look with the national team after a while. So we'll see what comes up with that. That's it for Thursday's Daily. Check back tomorrow and every day for the Daily.